One very pleasant encounter I had with a famous artist was from a previous generation altogether, and who I really admired. His name was Man Ray. And I had always loved his painting, his photograph of Yves Tanguy, who was a surrealist artist of the 30s. And his Man Ray's niece lived in Princeton. So I went to her and I said, "Gee, I really love this painting of this photograph of your uncle's." And she said, "Well, I've got all the negatives, I'll make you a print." I said, "Gee, that would be great." So I think I paid her $25 for it. She made the print of Yves Tanguy's, Man Ray's photograph of Yves Tanguy. Now, sometime after that, Man Ray came to a party that was given to a friend of mine. This is around 1970s, a little later than the other things I've mentioned. And he was a little guy, very, very nice. And I said, "I wonder if I can get him to sign this photograph. Would he be offended?" But I said, it's worth the try. So I got the photograph and I went up to him. And I didn't know whether to call him Mr. Man or Mr. Ray or, obviously a made-up name. His actual name was Manny Raditsky, and he was from Brooklyn. But I went up to him and said, "Would you please, would you actually sign this photograph?" So he said, "Sure," and he wrote down Man Ray. "Oh, that's wonderful." And he said, "When did I do this?" I said, "I don't know, sometime in the 30s. He said, "How about 1936? I said, "Sure." So I wrote down. I still have that photograph, I just love it. So, here I'm not, I'm describing my career here. Doesn't sound too good, does it? But Frank was in a show at the Museum of Modern Art called, I think, 16 Americans. And his paintings made a big splash because, as I said, there were nothing but black stripes, and here they were at the Museum of Modern Art. And this was a big deal back then. And he got a show with Leo Castelli, who was probably the best dealer in New York at the time. And Frank and Leo's assistant, whose name is Ivan Clark, who still has a gallery, I believe he still has a gallery, they kept pressuring Leo to give me a show. This was in 1964. Now, the thing is that minimalism had now become a big deal. The story I told you about the guy who looked and said, "Where are the paintings?" That was 5 years earlier. Now minimalism was the coming thing. And there was a show at the Museum of Modern Art called The Responsive Eye, I think that was the name of it. And I was in that show, and a lot of other minimalists were in that show. And so Leo was looking for a minimalist painter. And Frank and Ivan kept pressuring him. So finally, he called me up and said, "I'd like to give you the opening show of it's either 64 or 65, I can't remember." So I was thrilled, of course. Finally, I was going to get a show, and I was going to show my minimalist paintings or whatever I had, and it was great. But he hadn't really planned very well. And I was living in Princeton, and so he hadn't seen the paintings. The problem is that by that time, I'd gotten bored with minimal paintings, and I wasn't painting minimal paintings anymore. So I took my paintings up to New York, and Leo came into the studio, Frank's studio, where I was showing the paintings, and he took one look at them, and he absolutely turned green. And he said, "Is this what you're painting now? Is this what you're going to show?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "You're not painting the circles and rectangles and things like that anymore?" I said, "No, I'm bored with that. I don't want to do that anymore." So he and Ivan went off in a corner and had this furious talk, and I heard Ivan say, "But Leo, we can't do that. We're committed. And Leo came back and said, "I'm sorry, I can't show these paintings." Now the problem was, aside from the fact that I was totally pissed off, the problem was that all the advertising and announcements had been sent. So the show had been officially announced. So when people came to the opening of the show, there wasn't any show. There weren't any Bannard paintings there. So it was embarrassing all the way around. But I do claim to be the first and most extreme conceptual artist. Nobody acknowledges that. So what would be my advice to young artists? Well, you know, I like to give specific advice. I don't like to give... Young artists get an awful lot of unhelpful advice. Not here, not here. But, like for example, unhelpful advice. Paint how you feel. What if you feel terrible? It makes no sense. It's not helpful. There are a few things I could say that are specific. One is find a friend who has a good eye and who is honest. There's nothing better in the world than that. Somebody who can really tell you, you know, you're not doing very well right now. If you can find a good dealer is worth every penny he cheats you out of. Because there is nothing better than having a really good dealer. You just can't sell your own work. I mean, some people can do it, but most people aren't. Most artists are not temperamentally suited to do so. Photograph and title with a specific title, not number 1, number 2, everything you do. Because if you don't do that, as the years go by, you'll find yourself suffering from what supermarket managers call shrinkage. There will be paintings you don't know where they are, and when you find them, the dealer says, "Oh, I got that." You know, title and photograph everything. If you can't understand the art criticism you were reading, the chances are that you are not the stupid one. And if you really think you know what you're doing, you're probably wrong. But if you're a real artist, you're probably going to do it anyway. And finally, the big secret. The big secret, it's not really a big secret, but what's the basic underlying thing that every young artist has to understand, and that is persistence. And I hope my stories have illustrated that to some extent. Working hard is no guarantee of success, but not working hard is a certain guarantee of failure. So carry on, all you artists, onwards and upwards. Thank you very much. Questions about anything, I'll be happy to answer them. Any questions?
What was your big break?
My big break?
Yes, so to speak. I mean, all these stories of challenge and whatnot. When did the moment occur that actually started to kind of clearly pay off?
Oh, I should have mentioned that. Thanks for asking. That Castelli story. A week after I had that experience with Leo Castelli, a man named Johnny Myers called from the Tibor Denage Gallery and said, "I got a big problem. The artist Ron Gorchov has a show in January and he showed up with no paintings. He said, could you possibly have a show with me?" And I said, "Well..." I said, "Yeah, but you gotta come look at the paintings first." And he did. He came and looked at the paintings, he liked them, and I had 7 years of a very profitable arrangement with the Tibor Denage Gallery was the name of the gallery. So that's another demonstration of persistence. You keep at it, and sooner or later, something happens. It's more important than talent. It's more important than anything. You got to do it. And it's the first thing I tell my students. I said, one thing that I want out of you is production. I want you to do it. You can paint bad paintings, I don't care. Just do it. Just paint. Just do it. Anything else? Anybody else? No?